Hey everyone, a really warm welcome back to the channel. Now, sunshades are really simple things that you can make, and I thought in today's video I might talk you through the history of various things I've made, first of all for our folding camper, and then actually reusing the same fabric to make a sunshade for this caravan. And hopefully through that to offer a few tips and tricks along the way in case you're thinking of doing something similar. And we will start off with our folding camper. So if you've seen the folding camper intro I did years ago, I think 3 years ago on the channel, you'll know that a folding camper is basically the base of a caravan with flaps that turn into beds that fold out from either end. So we have one of the big quart 6 ones, one of the big Pennine folding campers, and so that was nice and compact on the road, and you had all the benefits of the caravan, like built-in hob and oven and grill and so on, and also a washroom. But on the road it was nice and small and compact, and it was easy to store. And what I decided to do was, because the awning on that was a big awning, it was a big poled awning, the whole of the top half of that folding camper was made by Isabella. So as you can imagine, it was their beautiful heavy fabric, and to put the awning on was quite a rigmarole. Towards the end of us owning one, Pennine actually made a relationship with, I forget who it was, but they brought out a small porch awning that you could use, because the way awnings fit to folding campers with their canvas tops is to zip on and then the pole work in the normal sort of way with hooks through the poles in the folding camper itself. So what I wanted to do, and what I thought I'd try and achieve, is just to make a huge piece of fabric. So it was about 8 meters long and about 3 meters side to side. And what I was hoping I'd be able to do is just to be able to throw that over, or at least throw it on the top and have people walk down the side with strings, pull the sheet over the top of the folding camper, and I don't have any pictures, sorry, so I'm going to have to try and explain it. Pull the sheet over the top of the folding camper, and then it would cover both the top of the canvas and come out the front and act as a small sunshade. So I made it 3.2 meters wide, and the folding camper was 2 meters wide, so I was hoping we'd have just 1.2 meters out the front with a little sunshade, so perfect for little stops. And the reason I did that, rather than making something that zipped on to the front of the camper itself, was twofold. One, I can't reach to zip that thing all the way around, even standing on a step. Even standing on a 3 or 4 step I think was a problem. But more importantly, because it was a canvas top on the folding camper, of course it gets hot, gets much hotter, much colder, just like awnings do, and plastic tents and so on, polyester tents. And so what I was hoping was, by putting a shade over the top of the main body of the unit as well, we'd keep it a little bit darker and a little bit more stable in terms of temperature. So I made the sheet, good old 8 meters long, I think 3 meters wide, 3.2 meters wide. So because the folding camper doesn't have anything to attach to on the rear, what I did there was to sew a channel into the back and a channel into the front, and then into each of the channels I bought the thickest, chunkiest tent poles I could manage, with a couple of elbows in them, so that the tent poles could be threaded in and then form an arch at the back and the front, so it almost became self-supporting. And then the folding camper sat under that. And what I was hoping was that would give a bit of an air gap, which would act as insulation, so to keep the temperature more stable, so both warmer during the night and cooler during the day. And also that would keep the weight of the fabric off the top of the folding camper itself, obviously, so there was no stress on the standard poles and the standard materials. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the creation in action, because I made it back in 2015, way before filming everything we did became a thing. And I was quite frustrated on the trial attempt, because I'd thought quite a lot about this and worked on it for a while, and it was one of my first creations, if you like, for our caravanning camping exploits, and it was so frustrating when I first put it on, because it was not the easy to use thing that I thought it was going to be. So I had the roll of fabric, and what I was hoping that we'd be able to do is 2 people would simply be able to grab hold of the front, have some webbing straps on it, and then pull it over the top, so to just take the fabric and drag it over the top, and then to be able to put the poles in. And in theory that should have all worked, but the heights and the weights just didn't work out properly. So the fabric was too heavy to be able to pull up simply, and then as it went over the top of the folding camper, it just kept getting stuck on the ridge poles that hold the normal fabric of the roof up on the folding camper. So it was very frustrating, hence there's probably no pictures, because A, I wasn't trained, and B, I was annoyed. Anyway, what I could have done, of course, is to remake the sunshade itself for the folding camper. I could have just cut the back pole sleeve off and then put a zip on to be able to zip it on the front of the camper and just use it in the normal way. But actually by that point Mike and I had decided that the folding camper, the layout that we had, was no longer working for us because the boys were getting much bigger, and quite early on my two absolutely refused to share a bed, certainly a transverse one, yeah, crossways went. They were not sharing that, and the little one was getting too big for one of the side sofas as well, so we had to change unit at that point, which is why we went for the bigger trailer tent. But that, if you've seen the past footage, was an absolute leaking disaster, so we will not talk about that for long. But then 6-9 months after that disaster, we bought this thing, and all has been peachy since. So I had that huge piece of fabric left over from the folding camper sunshade attempt when the Caravan came, and so I cut a little bit off of the back, so the tube off of the back that I'd formerly put the arc of the pole in, and then stitched a piece of kedar beading onto there, and we simply tried it out on the Caravan here on the drive. What I was hoping I'd be able to do is to add just a couple of upright poles at the corners, so at the ends, parallel with the ends of the straight bit of the Caravan, and just pop them on there. But as you can see, it all looked rather saggy, so that wasn't a possibility in terms of just modifying it by putting a few pole loops in. So what I ended up doing was reducing the width at the front and then massively reducing the width at the back, where the sunshade went into the awning rail on the Caravan, and made that only as wide as the straight bit of the awning rail, and the straight bit of the awning rail is about 3.5 meters, and I think I made the front 6 meters. And then I cut a diagonal line between that front 6 meter length and the back 3.5 meter length, and then hemmed the edges to make it nice and neat. This fabric doesn't fray at all, but obviously it's important that it looks neat. And then I added some webbing loops to attach guy ropes to, and then 3 brass eyelets at the front for upright poles. 1 upright pole at each end that was directly parallel to the straight bit of the awning rail, and then 1 in the centre, because it was 3.5 meters to give it some support. So of course that centre one sits a little bit lower to enable any rain or dew or anything to drip off. So that left the sunshade looking like this. So I think the sides work really well, those sort of wings on the sides, and that helps to hold the whole construction much more solid, because you've got guys going in multiple directions, so you've got bracing in all directions of those particular poles itself. So I'm really happy with how that worked out in the end, and it's a nice little package that makes going away in the summer, if all you need is a little bit of shelter over the door, makes it just perfect. So what would I do differently if I were doing this whole thing again? Well, I'm quite happy with the quality of the fabric. The weight of the thing is perfect, I think, and the sort of waterproofness of it works really well. Potentially I would go for more of a breathable canvasy cotton type fabric, because I think that would be much nicer in the hotter weather, would hopefully make it feel a bit less sweaty, humid underneath if water vapor could escape through it. So definitely I go for something a bit more cottony, but the same sort of thickness. Whatever you do, if you want to do a project like this, do not go for ripstop kite fabric. You can imagine, so it's hugely strong and lightweight, but the tiniest breeze flicks up and it'll be rustling and rattling away, and it'll drive you absolutely bonkers. So whatever you do, do not be tempted by that sort of ripstop kite fabric. The other thing I do differently is the poles I chose. They're steel ones. I chose them because they were black, they look good, and they were the right sort of size and dimensions and so on, but actually they're not very good. I'm not comfortable with the way the thumb screw does up and holds the pole taut, especially holding up that much weight. It's a reasonably heavy fabric, that volume of it anyway, and certainly if the wind gets up there's a bit of tension there. What I've used since is I did another project modifying a drive-away awning so it fits on both the van and the caravan, and it's also modular now. You've seen that, I think, in some sneaky footage of Cornwall last year when we took just the van with us, and it was also out at Sethorns as well. So when it was on the caravan at Sethorns, it was in its small configuration, so we fitted on the pitch with the caravan. And when we were down in Cornwall, it had the big front module on, not as supplied by Outdoor Revolution, but I'll show you that in a different video. Anyway, to strengthen that and to keep the roof up properly, I've actually added some aluminium poles to it with some twist lock length adjusters, and they're by Camper, and they're much better. They're big chunky poles, but they're much lighter than these steel ones, so I think they're much better. So what I've done is put a link down in the description below to those much stronger aluminium poles, because I don't want to recommend the steel ones. They're not very good. So let's see if I can save you some money by not buying those. So the other thing I do is choose a bit funkier fabric. The beige is fine, and I used it because I happen to have loads and loads of it left over in the house from a shade project we were going to do for the patio, and then changed our minds about. So, you know, happy to use it because we had it left over. It was spare. It was very, for fabric, it was very expensive for what it was. But if I were doing it from scratch, I'd choose something a little bit funkier. And I'll put a little picture in here of some really funky fabric that's just arrived that I'm going to make a little door cover for the caravan, for when I'm using it just on my own with no awning up. And that looks really cool. So I'm looking forward to working with that. And if I were doing the project from scratch and I didn't have anything to work with already, then I would choose something like that, just to give it a bit of, I don't know, je ne sais quoi. Yeah, I don't know what. Je ne sais quoi. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for tuning in. I would absolutely love to see any photos if you have a go at making your own sunshade. It's a very simple project. As I said, I've linked below in the description to some of the materials that I used and the things that I recommend now, having tried out stuff I don't recommend. I've not put any listings to any of the stuff I don't recommend because I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I would love to see pictures if you have a go. Tag me in on Instagram or on Twitter, and again the links to those accounts are in the description, because it's just fantastic when we see individual stuff that people have done with their caravans, to their caravans. I just love seeing everybody's little choices of interior furnishings and soft furnishings, and there's some really funky sunshades out there that other folks have made. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Do the thumbs up and all that normal sort of stuff. Subscribe if you're not already, and I will catch you in the next one. So bye for now. See ya.